Anti-Fascist Alliance of Filipino organizations. This includes Anak Bayan Toronto, Migrante Ontario, which is for overseas Filipino workers, and we are struggling for national democracy in the Philippines. We fight for national liberation against U.S. imperialism and aim to uphold the rights of the broad masses of the Filipino people and the peasant struggle for land. I was born in the Philippines and grew up here in so-called Canada. I was taught that this was a peacekeeping nation, but I learned that this was a lie built on the genocide of indigenous peoples. This genocide continues through the Canadian mining industry, which is also responsible for widespread environmental destruction, human rights abuses, and conflicts with indigenous communities in the Philippines, targeted for its vast, rich mineral resources. Canadian mining companies own 15% of mining projects in the Philippines, some of which have been based on the island of Mindoro, a site of intensifying militarization and land grabbing. On New Year's Day this year, the Philippines military bombed Mindoro, killed 3 indigenous children and 2 youth, displaced hundreds of families from their homes, and forced communities into hunger. Shame! Mining companies dump their toxic waste and poison the waters and lands, not unlike what has happened to the people of Grassy Narrows and What's Wanted. The Philippines is considered one of the most dangerous places in the world for land defenders who face violence, surveillance, and red tagging that criminalizes activism by labeling it as terrorism. The local government, landlords, and political dynasty families sell out the Filipino people and its lands to foreign interests at the cost of the livelihoods of peasants, indigenous peoples, and workers who suffer the brunt of militarization and imperialist plunder. After hundreds of years of colonization, the Philippines remained subservient to the interests of the U.S. Empire despite gaining so-called independence in 1946. Puppet presidents like brutal dictator Marcos Sr. to his nepo baby son Marcos Jr. today are placed into positions of power to uphold unequal agreements with the U.S. and its allies like Canada. Last year, Canada signed the Status of Visiting Forces Agreement, allowing Canadian troops to use the Philippines as its playground for its war games. This agreement will also no doubt expand Canadian mining operations that will exploit the Philippines' natural resources for its own benefit, while the Filipino masses suffer. These conditions contribute to the forced migration of 8,000 Filipinos who leave the country every single day in search of a better life, only to become victims of modern-day slavery here, experiencing labor trafficking, massive debt, and abuse by exploitative employers. When overseas Filipinos seek support from the Philippine consulate, they are met with excessive bureaucracy that prevents them from receiving timely and necessary assistance. In fact, Toronto Consul General Christine Sale even colluded with Premier Doug Ford and invited Philippine delegates to PDAC, betraying the Filipino people for their own interests. Just this morning, they had their opening ceremonies to invite the Filipinos here. And this also represents their role in upholding the U.S.-led Indo-Pacific strategy, which is also being developed by Canada for the end of this year, which aims to build so-called economic prosperity in the region. But we know that this will only benefit the ruling elite and imperialist interests. They said they're here because they believe Canada is the gold standard of environmental protections, but this is a lie. We know from the long history of Canadian mining violations in the Philippines that this is a blatant lie. Shame! Ending the system of poverty and forced migration from our homeland is our most concrete contribution to stopping the settling on these lands. Ending the world system of imperialism is the only way to liberate our people and the indigenous peoples on whose land we are on.